And since we're going to turn you into gardener, we might even turn you into composters. And those are two very radical acts. And I hope I'm talking to a bunch of radicals today. That means you've got roots if you're a radical. Okay, so this is the theme song for my compost education project that started in '91. It's tolerable. That leaves in your neighborhood is thrown around like you knew they would. The dumps are full all over town, but you need some help breaking this stuff down. I'm talking about a hard-working bunch. They take the leaves and turn them into lunch. They take green grass and turn it chocolate brown. You'd be amazed how they wolf it down. The composters, they're just chewing. Composters, just grooving. I ain't gonna tell you just what you should do, but I'd call the composters if I were you. They like it hot, they need a place to work. You have to feed them leaves and grass and dirt. Just mix them up with their favorite food. Fill them up out so they can groove. The composters just chewing. Composters just grooving. They get no thanks for all their work, it's true, but when you need them, no one else will do. The composters just chewing. Composters just grooving. I ain't gonna tell you this what you should do, but I'd call the composters if I were you. The composters. Where's that note? Well, I'm an informal kind of person, and this is a good way to start it off. So, thank you. My new desk has a ledge that I can set my guitar on right here. Who knew? Okay, I'm going to show a little 3-minute video about Missouri Organic Recycling, just because we're a 28-year-old company. We have 93 employees. We have 6 locations in the metro. It's a $12 million business. We have a public-private partnership with the city of Kansas City to take all the leaves and all the grass and all the dead trees. We have a urban lumber company that cuts up logs and turns them into fine furniture. It's a very, people say, oh, you get paid to take stuff you need to make the stuff you sell. This must be a perfect business. Well, guess what? We have a $4 million maintenance budget every year. So that's just an idea of how much rolling stock it takes and how much diesel fuel. It's a big deal. So this is a video that Mid-America Regional Council paid to have us make. Okay, host disabled participant screen sharing. Is that possible? Still,
you should be the host.
Okay, I should. That says something, but I don't know. I didn't disable anything. Let me see. Any great hints from?
Do you have the link to the video, or is it a?
Well,
So Leslie, I think that you took back hosting powers to start the recording.
Yeah,
did you do that?
I gave it back to him.
Oh,
okay. Well, you're pushing more buttons than I could see. Okay. When I click share screen, it says the host disabled screen sharing. Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, so you're the host again. So
right.
Try it now. Do you love these technical
difficulties? Dang.
Are we good now?
We're good. We are so.
Just need to do it again.
So rolling. Okay. You see it pretty much full screen. Let me see. Uh-oh. I got to make sure. I may have to go back. Let's see if the sound is playing.
Yes, to make sure.
Okay, there's this little sound button on Zoom. You hear the sound? Did you hear any sound? There's music that should be playing. Okay, I'll go back and do this fast. There it is. Share sound over here in the corner. Okay. Here we are. Yes?
We've been doing food waste compost since 2005. Till today, you're looking at 465 million pounds of food waste we've composted. That's enough food waste to fill Arrowhead Stadium. So this nature-wise compost is the material we put back in the community that goes from farm to table to compost, back to farm, back to table again. This is completing the circle. We are one of 10 facilities in the United States that has one of these machines, this Tiger depackager. We are the only facility in the United States that does it this way. So as you can see behind me, the plastic is falling on the floor. It goes to waste to energy.
Right behind him, there's a cascade of wet cardboard and plastic that's being spit out of the debagger. It's a machine that grinds things up, waters them down, spins them out, and we take this stuff and mix it with ground up rejected pallets and then send it to a cement kiln. And so our facility is zero waste to energy. There's nothing goes to the trash from Missouri Organic. And that's a premium for corporate green disposal. So we have corporations that literally elbowing their way in and actually bidding up the price of the tipping fee to get in to put our stuff in their system, in our system.
The food waste gets pumped into tanks that you see, and then into the mixer.
Okay, right. Can you see my cursor? Right here, 1,000 gallons of food waste slurry. That's a polite term. It's slop. It's ground up everything, food waste. It's Boulevard beer. It's flowers from Kroger. It's everything you can think of. And this is ground up leaves. By the way, if I may, somebody's got their mic on when they may not need to. I'm getting feedback of my own narration. If you could all do that. This pickup truck is from this semi is from Hutchinson, Kansas. They have their hub in Hutchinson. They send their food out to their groceries, Kroger's and Dillon's, and all the waste comes back. And every morning we get at least one and sometimes two of these semis from Hutchinson, Kansas, full of stuff. And it's all right here. And we wash out the pallets, the containers, the totes, and sterilize them and send them back to Hutchinson. And so they couldn't do that if they didn't really want to do the green disposal. So this is the food waste. We mix it for about 6 or 7 minutes here, and it goes back out.
The mixer creates the compost mix. The compost takes about 6 to 8 weeks. And then all the stuff you see behind me also is going to waste to energy. So it goes to a cement plant where it gets burned for energy.
From the very beginning of this site, Missouri Organic has been a partner with us. So we've gotten, hundreds of yards of compost. We've gotten wood chips. Basically any resource that we've asked for, they've always been here to deliver and help us get this project going.
Yeah, that took maybe 20 minutes with the blower, so pretty cool.
In 2011, the Kansas City Chiefs started collecting organic materials from Arrowhead Stadium. We've partnered for over.
This is a picture of our composting site in Liberty, Missouri. It's a drone shot. There's approximately 10,000 cubic yards of compost here. There's a fog coming up at this point right here. That's where one of our turners is driving through the pile and spinning underneath it to turn it and mix it, aerate it. But our piles are 160 degrees. So even in the middle of summer, they'll make steam that you can see. And that's not really steam, it's the bug breath, it's the exhalations of bacteria that are eating the compost extremely rapidly. We give them a perfect diet. They're aquatic. They have to live on the wet surface of a leaf. They have to breathe through moisture. So all our compost is completely mixed, starts out at 60% moisture. And it's an industrial process. Nobody ever makes compost this way. And particularly with the food slurry, nobody in the country does it exactly this way.
9 years with Missouri Organic and collected over 1,261 tons of organics.
That's less than a month of our daily work. Good luck. Chiefs are great. We're glad to have them. People need to know this. One of our best ways to educate. But we're doing 60 tons a week.
We challenge our fans not only to help us compost at Arrowhead Stadium, but also in their daily lives.
I'm the educational arm for Missouri Organic Recycling. About a year ago, we built a poster, a diagram called Food Too Good to Waste. It's kind of the ideal food recovery system for Kansas City. We're using the poster, the song, and the website to teach kids all over the metro and all over the country, adults too. It's win, 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 win. When you do things right, the benefits kind of cascade. Yo, I got a story about a problem we are facing. We're creating and maintaining a big mess across the nation. It's a problem with the food. Almost half is wasted, left till it's outdated. Goodness never tasted it. Food too good to waste. It starts with preparation, the peeling and the chopping, work that must be done. Not a lot of fun, but the battle to be won is to keep it out of the dump. Food too good to waste. 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 Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's crazy stuff, but it's fun. Does anybody want to unmute and ask a question now about what's going on, what you saw?
There are a few in the chat if you
Okay,
want to
go
check
ahead.
them out.
Read me some.
So one is, where do we find red wrigglers for vericomposting?
Right.
First of all, what's vericomposting?
There's a vermi, VERMI, which is Latin for worm.
Okay.
So vermicomposting is great. It's a fabulous. I'm only about 10 feet from my 2 worm bins, but worms are amazing critters. They eat 1/4 of their body weight a day. Do the math. That's 45 pounds a day for me. And so they're voracious and they turn bacteria and soft food waste they can't chew into worm poop. And something's very different about worm poop. It's been eaten by a worm 3 or 4 times, and it's extremely sticky, glue-like, which makes it glue the soil together. It's got food for plants. It's got growth hormones. It sells for $5 a pound. Some worm farmers won't sell their worms anymore because the poop's too valuable. And this is a real demographic. And if you're starting to renew your soil, spraying vermicompost tea on the soil is one of the best ways to kick it back into action. Okay, give me another one. Oh, how would you get them? Know a friend who's got worm bins, or contact Uncle Jim's Worms online. Uncle Jim's. It's probably the most reliable source. And with COVID, the price has doubled. Boys and girls, it used to be $25 a pound for 1,000 worms. It's now 50. That's 20 cents a piece.
Wow.
Go figure. Maybe wait a few months and see if the price comes down. Might.
Okay. I definitely do want to make sure we get to our instructions on how to go no-till for a garden. So
okay, I can do that.
Why don't we go through that, and then we can handle the questions that have come up so far, and then also anything from your presentation about that as we have some time here at the end.
Okay, here we go. Is this, are you seeing a PowerPoint screen, full screen? How's that? Are you getting the double view? Is it
Yep, you
presenter?
got it.
Okay, it's not presenter view. Okay, cool. Well, as I say, gardening and composting are radical acts. Our food system is corporately dominated. And if you want to go to the grocery store, do not go down the middle aisles. Go around the outside edge where you'll get the live stuff that was alive and unmodified relatively recently. Everything in the middle is the high profit stuff that they want you to buy. And none of it's very nutritious. So gardening means that you're going to get fresh live food, and it's a very powerful source of nutrition. We have the most food and the most disease of any country in the world. And it's the reason why is we don't eat healthy food. And I'll go into that as we go. Let's see. No, he doesn't want to do that. I'll just click on them. I'm not certain of this statistic. I heard it once and I believe I heard it right, but we have more turf grass than we do farm fields. Both are a waste of energy, soil, and a source of pollution. So turning your lawn into a garden is a heroic act. I coach no tilling. I tilled for many, many years. And what I realized is that the organic matter in the soil, naturally underneath your grass, is being clumped up and sequestered in a way that the nitrogen and the organic matter itself is there in a semi-permanent state. When you till it, you chop up that storage system and pattern, and you turn bacteria loose on that rich food, and they eat it. And tilling can cause you to lose half the organic matter in the soils. I've tested a lot of soils in Kansas City, and they're between 4 and 5% organic matter, which is considered extremely high. The fields and the farms that you see that grow the food that we eat today have less than 1% organic matter. They're dirt. They're just dirt. They're not soil. They're not alive. They have to put in all the chemicals they need to feed them, and all the herbicides to kill the weeds, and the pesticides to kill the pests that come to kill the unhealthy plants that are growing in the soil. Your lawn has much better organic matter than a farm field. So don't start by cutting that in half and tilling it up. My wife is sitting on the cardboard there, what's going to happen? Well, it's going to kill the grass, and the grass is going to rot. If you have time, it's good to do this 2 or 3 weeks before you want to plant. Start it in the spring, but you can do it almost any time. And here's why: you put the cardboard on the cardboard's going to kill the grass, and the grass is going to start to rot, and the bacteria are going to have a whole bunch of food, and they're going to go nuts, and you'll have some very rich humus formed right there, and all those bacteria are the ultimate prey species. So that the predators come, the parameciums and the rotifers and the amoebas and the nematodes and the earthworms, and there's going to be this giant conversion party underneath that cardboard. And so they're going to re-fertilize and increase the fertility of your soil just as the grass gets eaten up. And so you say, I don't want to wait that long. The answer is, don't wait that long. If you want to plant tomatoes, cut a hole in the cardboard, plant them into the soil below. If you want to plant seeds, cover that cardboard with about 3 inches of good compost, and then plant right into that, because you can plant that right through that. The cardboard will be disappearing, and once it gets soaked from the bottom up, it'll stay wet, and you can plant immediately. That's the whole trick. Show's over. No, but it's extremely important to do it this way. It works really, really well. So I just explained that. Cut holes in the cardboard, plant the sets through the cardboard into the existing soil. In other words, you've got tomato pot that you bought, cut a hole in the cardboard, dig up some loose soil there, put your tomato set in there. But if you're planting seeds in rows, just plant that in the compost that's on top.
So Stan, you don't have to put soil on top of the cardboard then?
No, because the cardboard will be disappeared very soon, and the worms will not stop with that. with eating the cardboard, they'll come up and they'll start eating the compost and mixing it. By 6 to 8 months from there, there's no dividing line. It's compost on top, black soil, less black soil, no cardboard anymore, no grass anymore, and you're in business from then on. Okay. So I'm going to go into a little bit about compost itself, and there could well be at this point more questions about the food not lawns thing, but it's a great way to do the front yard. You can do little patches anywhere. The biggest problem in the city is sunshine. And Leslie and I had a consult around her house, and she had an idea of where she could go, and she was right, but her best spot was in her front yard, you know. And I'm sorry, neighbors, this is my garden. This is where my son is. And there are solar rights. You have a right to use your sunshine where you have it. So feel free to put your garden in the front yard if you want to. And, you know, I've been gardening, living in this suburban house for 15 years, and I had to move my garden once because my neighbor's trees grew 30 feet. And so, you know, do what you can with what you have and the time you have and the place you are. Do all you can. That's a song lyric. But what is compost? Well, compost is what we get when we recycle leaves, grass, and other things that are no longer living. Nature slowly recycles dead things into humus. Nature takes her time. People are in a hurry, so we make compost. Compost stands for composite. And a composite is a whole bunch of ingredients mixed together to make one thing. And in compost, we take all the ingredients in the city of Kansas City. We actually don't take manure from the animals. We have no manure involved in our situation. It's not a bad ingredient, but we want to avoid the stigma, and it's also not a dependable ingredient. But the leaves from every kind of tree, every tree is a chemical factory. Every leaf is a chemical factory. It has all kinds of nutrients in it. And nature designed it to cause a forest and a forest floor, and for those leaves to slowly melt into the soil and return their fertility to the ground. But we rake them up and throw them away. And in 1989, when we started this study, 40% of all the trash in Kansas City was leaves in black plastic bags. Makes a landfill into a spongy mess that ebbs and flows. It causes methane gas. It's a nasty thing. So the yard waste ban in Missouri is a terrific thing. And 25 states still do not have a yard waste ban. They're mostly in the South, in the red states. And it's stupid not to have a yard waste ban because it spawns a whole bunch of industry and recovers those nutrients. Grass clippings, dead trees. Our biggest business is mulch. We grind and screen the mulch to get these fibers of wood and then we color them with food coloring. So it's that's all going back out on the land too, mulching around trees and feeding them. So it's a powerful thing to do. But a composite means that the compost that's finished there has all the nutrients in the world, every building block that's needed for life. And so compost is like Legos. And you have calcium, you have magnesium. Well, they're very common and we all need them. We all need quite a bit of them, and that's fine. Compost has plenty. But your soil probably might not have molybdenum or boron or strontium or these trace elements. And unfortunately, these trace elements are like very energetic and they have some key functions they do at the heart of an enzymatic reaction. And they kick things over like a battery and make things happen. If you don't have all those in there, your soil will be deficient and your food will be deficient. Well, compost has them all. And so when you put compost on your soil, you use compost in your production system, then you have all the ingredients. So why is this so important? Because it's a cycle of life. Everything gets born, grows, matures, reproduces, slow decline where I am right now. And then they die. Fungi feed on them, bacteria feed on them, and then humus is formed. The Legos are down here. Humus is a more complicated more complicated material, a reassembly into perfect plant food. And the Romans knew very well that humus, before and after, humus. The Indians said, walk softly on the surface of the earth. You're standing on the faces of your children and grandchildren. My Latin teacher taught me a Latin drinking song. Gaudi almas igitur juvenes dum sumus, nos habebit humus. Let's party now because soon we're going to be in the soil. They all knew it. So this is not a new understanding, but it's powerful. And what do we do with it? We bury it. The trash is composed of yard waste, food waste, wood waste, spoiled paper, 1% diapers. And so half of all our trash is compostable. Now the 20% is out of there, so that's not true anymore. Probably still, given the way it works, it's probably in the near 40%, could be still recovered. And we're working on the food waste. Missouri Organic's only composting about 5% of the food waste in the metro. 0.5 pound per day, 2 million people, 1 million pounds of food waste a day. Oh, good. And when we bury it, it causes a gigantic problem. Methane from landfills, that sewer gas that you smell, the nasty smell of food waste. Methane is up to 80 times stronger than carbon dioxide for the first 2 or 3 years after it emerges. Landfills belch methane for decades, 30 to 40 years, and less than 10% of methane is recovered. There's some cities that are doing curbside food waste composting. We have the Compost Collective, which is the 5-gallon bucket service in Kansas City, that you can get to come to your doorstep and pick up your food waste and give you a new clean bucket. CompostCollectiveKC.org.
So Stan, I
yeah,
wanted to hop in here for a second. That's one of the questions that Antonio had asked. What's an easy way for somebody to start composting? Would you consider that KC Collective a good entry point?
That's the easiest, of course. And it's not that expensive. I believe they have a $5 a month service. I don't think it's every twice a week or whatever, but their lowest price services in their area of $5 a month. And if you want it to go to a good place, it'll come to us and we'll compost it for you. And we know it's going out of the waste stream then. There are some other ways you can do it. You can feed it to the worms, but your worms, unless you have 8 or 10 bins, can't handle everything you do. The backyard compost pile, I'll show you a big backyard compost pile pretty quick.
So speaking of worms, does it hurt the worms to be handled? Jess was curious about that.
Yeah, I can't say. I believe they're very sentient. They feel pain, I'm sure. But I have a 3-pronged fork and I go through the pile very carefully. I don't, they're in a soft, slimy place. I'm not pressing against them anywhere when I dig them up. So I think they sure as heck are surviving in there. I'll tell you what, if you didn't know this, 2 worms can make 500,000 babies in 6 months.
And I was going to ask real quick, Stan, we have little ones and we're doing a STEM science project. So we bought a home composting so they can watch and see how composting works. And then we bought little wigglers and they really want to touch and hold them, but I'm afraid that they're going to hurt or damage them. And so I thought I would ask you today, just before I allowed them to.
Okay, that kind of handling.
Yeah.
Worms are pretty tough. Worms don't drown in the water. It takes them about 24 hours to wash all the mucus off their body, and then they slowly absorb water, and then they drown.
Okay.
So they're designed to make mucus on their body, and if you want them to keep them from handling the worms quite so much, you could tell them that the reason that they're wet is that they pee on themselves.
Okay. Yeah. They love them. They don't care. We are obsessed with worms. We We found a night crawler about this big last night. I thought it was a snake at first.
Yes.
We played with him for about 30 minutes and I was like, we have to put him back in his home. So we're obsessed.
No, that's true. But obviously that mucus is internally generated and that's the way they breathe. And the only thing that would happen is that their they're losing their breathing apparatus with our dry skin. And, if you handle them excessively over their body, they might have a few hours of anoxia, but they'll make it in any case. So it's not to give more kids more worms, I guess would be the answer to this.
Yeah, we had about 20 last night, and I mean, we're obsessed with these worms. So we have a whole worm science kit creator, and now we've got them in the house, and it's a thing.
Right.
So
Okay. Are you in Kansas or Missouri?
we're in Liberty, Missouri.
Okay. Well, we're looking for funding to do a very powerful food waste composting program in schools. We did it for the state of Kansas this year. We're doing it next year. $200 in materials to each school. Free videos, 4 really good YouTube videos you watch, kind of a canned lesson that's easy to do. I'm Stan at MissouriOrganic.com.
Okay.
Send me an email. We will get funding, and I will hook you guys up if you can.
Perfect.
Yeah,
I am in touch with Liberty School Districts, and I
Uh-huh.
actually know the principals of 2 of the schools here. So we will see if we can get you into our school systems out here then.
Yeah, we're looking to expand. We'll probably handle 50 to 70 schools this fall in the metro. I'm not sure how Johnson County wants to fund us separately from Kansas, so we're going to be busy. But
How much is it to go to one school?
it's on the order of $700, but that
700.
includes a curriculum that lasts for years and years,
Okay.
and $200 in materials.
Okay. So about
So,
$1,000 total.
No, it's 700.
700. So
Yeah.
what I'll do is start a fundraiser on your behalf through our company Hypercubed.
Hey,
and see
Jess.
if we can get that raised.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go offline with that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, let's go offline with that, and it sounds like an awesome opportunity.
Right. I did want to let you know about that eventually, but it came out too soon. In your compost pile, you want brown stuff, dry that might burn and can be stored, and green stuff, wet, smelly things, food, grass clippings, manure, things that rot quickly. This is the nitrogen material. This is the carbon material, carbohydrates, and that's how you feed them. Composting works by bacteria actually exuding. They have external digestion. They're so small, there's no mouth, there's no digestive tract. What happens? They land on the surface of the leaf and they exude digestive enzymes and slime the leaf and start to digest it. Then with their external digestion, they absorb the food material. So they slime their food and slurp it back up. And this is very unusual. People don't understand it, but it means that all your surfaces in the pile have to have a liquid film on them. And it has to be about 50% moisture total. So what's wrong with your pile? Too dry. It's an easy answer because it's totally true for most people that their piles are too dry. Adding food scraps is a great idea, but cover them. Keep the moisture inside, dig a hole and bury them, or put them on top and cover them with a pile of leaves. So otherwise you get vermin, flies, raccoons, possums, rats. This is an easy way to compost if you've ever heard of a green cone. It's from Europe. The idea is that you don't compost anything and you can compost meat and cheese and the things they say you can't compost. This is the opening. You just open it up and it's got like a laundry basket below the ground, open to the dirt. You throw it down there, it rots, it smells like hell in there, but it all just melts into the soil. Put it in the middle of a flower bed and the plants will be fed by the green cone.
So Stan, Holly had a question about the no-till planting. Her question was, she thought that you had to dilute the compost with garden soil, but it sounded like you could just plant the seeds directly into compost. So
right.
Can she plant directly into the 100% compost that she got from your company?
Yes. Our compost gets stored in gigantic piles, and that pile can't breathe. And sometimes there's still odor inside the pile. If you spread it out on the ground and doesn't smell bad, plant in it. Usually just one day was all it takes for it to breathe that smell off, and unfortunately it kind of puts people off for a while, for about a day. But once it's been spread, it's ready to grow. And yeah, you can plant directly into it. It's great. We used to think that if we were tilling, we'd till at 1 inch into 3 inches of dirt. And that's not a bad ratio, but let's let the worms do that. That's their job. Let me see. I'm looking for slides because I know we're challenged for time. I want to show you some bins. This is a good worm bin, a good compost bin. It's a 3-bin unit. This is one of mine. Like there's finished compost here, ready to use. There's stuff being stored over here, and this is the pile that I'm stirring, actively mixing together. This one says, you know, the idea of this one is that you might take this pile and turn it over into this one and over into that one. It is a good idea to go to the bottom of a pile and mix everything together. Best way to do it is to dump them together in little layers. In other words, put a little bit of this in, a little bit of that in, a little bit of this in. Today's food scraps, some leaves to cover. I saved some bags of leaves for the summer. Problem with composting is when you've got green, you don't have brown. When you got brown in the fall and winter, you don't have green. Food waste kind of makes that go all the way year round, which makes it a great ingredient. But in the summer, you may only have grass and food waste, and you won't have any brown stuff. So adding some leaves, shredded paper. If you've got a source of office shredded paper, it's the bomb. Use that. Farmers, they've got this dry bedding and it's pretty good stuff, but they need a lot of water. There's no material in there. This is a great one. I call it the Neapolitan pile. But to do this, you have to have a lot of grass clippings and a lot of leaves all together at one time and then layer them in one bit. I'm suggesting do this over the course of a year. Slowly layer of each kind.
That was going to be my question. So, you know, I mean, it's toward the end of May now. With your cardboard method, you know, we can still have a garden for this year.
Right.
But if we were really wanting to start things by seed next year, you know, I was thinking, you know, could we start our composting effort now to have that available for our garden next year?
Yeah. The bulk of most piles is the browns, and so you won't have a lot of browns, but you do have weeds. You have, you know, as you do it, you've got bulky materials, and it's okay to have it compost a little faster. Obviously, the brown stuff takes longer. It's a carbohydrate. It's more dense. Takes longer, but that's, you know, if you don't have it, just use the greens. The problem would be that it tends to be a little more odoriferous. So keep it in a pile. I like this pile design because it breathes really well and holds the material. So just layer it. If you can find some paper, even cardboard. If you go to Missouri Organic, go to YouTube, Missouri Organic Recycling. There's a video there called Compost Mechanics. It's the first video in the series of videos for schools. It talks about 10 minutes on building a compost pile. So you're welcome to look at that at any time. So this is the pile that I turn. I can add green stuff to that pile all the time. I add my grass and then kind of stir it in. Don't dump a big old wad of grass on top of your compost pile. It'll stink and smell like really bad stuff. So add grass in or stir grass in as you go. This is the compost pile. It's almost finished. I just put some grass in it. So I mixed green into the finished compost. That works really well. Here's the tiny compost bins. Layering it and small additions is very important in this one. Obviously, one bag of leaves would fill it. So you can't do it that way. When is it finished? When you can't identify any one ingredient in it, then it is transformed. When it doesn't look like what it used to be, when all the particles are brown throughout, structures crumbly and sweet smelling. I like to have worms in my pile. These worms will actually transform it into worm poop, and it makes it enormously valuable. And it's hard to keep worms out of your pile because if you build it on the soil, they'll come up out of the ground. So you'll know you're in good shape if you got worms in the pile. Here's this is the worm bin design. Also on that YouTube channel is a worm compost called All About Worms. You can watch that. Teaches you how to build this kind of a bin and how to maintain them. Worms do a great job for people. Some people say, well, how do I separate my worms? Well, take a small pile of worm manure on the black plastic in the sun. The worms will retreat. They hate the sunlight. It's too dry. Scrape the poop down that doesn't have any worms. Scrape it down till you get to the worms, and the worms will retreat. Scrape it, retreat. Scrape it, retreat. Scrape it, retreat. Wait about 5 minutes each time they retreat, and then you'll have this thin layer of worm poop covering a bunch of very nervous worms. That's when you've got it, a good separation. It's the best way to separate the castings from the worms. Adding leaves, adding compost. My lawn looks terrific because I add compost over the time. Plus, I get good compost because I work for the company. If you add leaves in the fall, you can do that. Just make sure they get moistened and eventually break down. One of the things people don't know is that plant roots spill sugar into the soil. Plants make their sugars, but they give about half of their sugars to the dirt. That makes bacteria go like crazy. And then predators come. So it's like Armageddon at the root tip. These sugars, these bacteria coat the root and give it physical protection like a wet sock. But then the bacteria are preyed on by amoebas and protozoas and rotifers. And what happens then is that all that eating and pooping and farting and dying creates humus, which is plant food at the root tip. This is the way God designed it. Perfect, on-time delivery through nutrition created by the life that came from the sugars from the plants. We've only known this for about 20 years. And now we're calling, there's the company called the green cover seeds. This year, for the first time in my life, we're planting peas, radishes, and oats, and we're going to kill them. But when I weed, I use my hedge trimmer. Just cut them back and leave the roots in place. We want as many plants spilling as many different kinds of sugars into the soil as possible to make a rich, diverse culture of life below the soil. And that keeps the plants really healthy and pest free. So this is the way nature does it. After about 10 years of gardening, look at my soil, how black it is. I pulled this squash out of the ground and the roots were 30 inches long. And I actually kind of screamed when I pulled it out. It scared me.
So we're at, we have 4 minutes left. I can't believe it.
Yeah. This is one harvest from my cornered lot. One day's harvest.
That is awesome. So we got a few questions I was hoping we might be able to cover before we need to head out here. So one is the peas, radishes, and oats. They're good complementary crops.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, they have a chaos garden with 40 seeds, 40 different plants. And they just throw them out and wait. And then they go harvest whatever's there at whatever time. I'm not ready for that yet. But I am doing a three crop cover crop.
Okay. And then do you have any suggestions on native plants that are edible?
My wife has just recently gone batshit crazy on native plants, and we spent $500 this spring on native plants. And
it's easy to do.
Right. Native edibles. Well, there are some plums. There are some. I don't like the grapes. I don't see the thing that what we're finding is that the exotic plants are not host to the insects that feed the birds. And like a ginkgo tree will have 3 or 4 butterflies and caterpillars laying their eggs, but an oak can have 400 species in an oak tree. So, you know, whether we eat them or not, how about let's feed the web of life and the biology around us with the natives, because they evolved to be eaten, to be food for, and to feed that circle, which we benefit from enormously. So we're jumping on a trampoline and cutting the ropes.
Okay, and then is your company doing anything with the new research about mushrooms and mealworms digesting plastic?
No, we're volume based production. You know, we have 10 tons of food waste a day coming in the door. I'm the guy that reads about that stuff, and I do read about that stuff, and it's exciting things. The fungi world is just nuts. It's so many great things happening there with medicinal, with remediation, like you talk about, hazardous waste cleanups and mushrooms. You know, how do you get tasty edible mushrooms out of a pile of contaminated soil and you know, hydrocarbons? You
know? So Tim had said he's looking at possibly pitching community gardens at multifamily dwellings. So when you gave your email address, Stan at MissouriOrganic.com, is that correct? Then I figured, Tim, you could reach out directly to Stan and
Right.
also Jess on the school stuff.
Yeah,
And
yesterday I built 2 big compost bins for Melcher Elementary and Paseo Elementary. And these are compost bins to go with their school gardens. And we're talking about getting that cycle going in the food desert of the inner city, because man, if any place ever needed nutritious food and grounding, you know, where we see where it comes from, how that food cycle works, it was enormously satisfying to have kids not know what was going on.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so true. Well, we're at time, and I want to just be respectful of that. This has been great. I think that, you know, it's interesting how little time we actually had to talk about the no-till part, because it's just so darn easy that all you do is you put the cardboard down and let it do its thing. So that's really an awesome lesson, and I'm excited to do that. I have tons of cardboard to leverage in that effort, and really appreciate everybody who was here today and all the knowledge that you just dropped on us, Stan. Like it's awesome to just learn all these little easy steps for using what we throw away and
right,
making it into something good.
I'm really selfish. I want to be 110 dancing too rowdy on the cruise ship and fall over the rail. You know, I know people who are dragging oxygen tanks around the grocery store with a cannula on their nose, and it's like, that doesn't sound like any fun to me. And the only way I can get to 110 in the cruise ship is to eat really healthy food and exercise, and don't pay much attention to the doctors.
Well,
just do the good stuff, and you know what it is. You know, it's those eggs that are orange and sit up in big. You don't have to be a vegetarian. Get grass-fed beef, and you know, you can do all that stuff. It's
well, thank you
there.
again, Stan. This has just really been fantastic. I hope that those of you who had specific questions for more intense projects that you want to possibly collaborate with Stan on, will definitely reach out. And
hey, I got a job. I get to do this. You know,
Yeah.
I'm crazy to do it anyway, but you know, somebody wants me to come speak to your group or whatever. That's what I do.
Yes. So thank you again. And thanks for everyone who came today. I hope you got a tidbit or two out of it, even if you're a master gardener. And thank you for hanging out with us and learn a little bit more about Reuseful.
Thank you, Leslie.
All right. Everybody have a great day. Thanks so much.
Yep.
Bye-bye.